name's Connor, and this is the Rustic Pathways webinar about how to connect programs together. For anyone new joining us, you'll see that at the bottom of the screen, there's a little Q&A section towards the bottom. Anytime that you have questions throughout the webinar, definitely feel free to just type in your question there. I've got my colleague Jessie in the background answering questions. So she'll be able to answer questions throughout the webinar. And then if there's questions that are really good for the whole group to hear, I will answer that at the end of the webinar. So with that, we'll get started. So like I said, my name is Connor. I'm one of our global program advisors here at Rustic Pathways. Essentially, I've worked for Rustic Pathways for about 10 years now, and I've worked just loads of places sort of around the world running trips. So all in all, I've run about 50 to 60 programs at Rustic Pathways in the United States, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Tanzania, Thailand, Australia, Fiji, China, Mongolia, India. So I've run a lot of programs together. I'm a really big advocate that we do so many cool things around the world. So I'm really excited to talk about creating an experience that you're really excited for your student, which might include connecting a couple different programs together with different interest levels or in different parts of the country. So I'm really excited to talk to you about how that all works. During this webinar, we're going to talk a little bit about just Rustic Pathways in general. If you're new to our organization, just talking a little bit about who we are and the types of things that we do. We'll go over our Unwrapped Rustic holiday promotion. We're going to talk about maximizing your summer. So thinking about how long you want to be traveling. We'll talk about creating the perfect experience for you, which really is about thinking about your individual goals and expectations for what you want out of a summer experience, and how you can sort of connect different programs that might be fulfilling different types of those goals into one overall experience for you. Then we'll talk about how it works, the actual logistics of connecting programs back to back. I'll give you some good examples and some things to think through while you're thinking about connecting programs together. We'll go over how to enroll, so the general enrollment process, and then what it would look like on the application itself if you are connecting two programs. And then, like I said, at the very end, we'll take questions that Jessie wasn't able to get to in the background. So the first thing I'll talk about is just who is Rustic Pathways. So we have been working for just shy of 4 decades now, running programs for students. And we really see ourselves as the intersection between education, travel, and philanthropy. So our programs really are geared towards students. So we have some programs for middle school students, high school students, and then college students, although the majority of our programs are for students who are 14 to 18 years old. And then obviously we really want students to travel and sort of get outside of the traditional classroom walls. We just think there's a lot that you can learn about yourself and the world when you're in it and sort of experiencing it. Obviously, we're really big in the education component to it. So while on the ground with our programs, we're not just going to see the Great Wall, we're not just going whitewater rafting, but we really want you engaging in the community and culture, learning what it means to be a Peruvian citizen, or what does it mean to be a woman in Cambodia, or what does it mean to be a teen growing up in Thailand. So we really want to take you on an experience with these trips and give you that sort of direct interaction with those communities as well. And then philanthropy is just a huge part of Rustic Pathways. So overall, we run about 100 programs across the globe, and about 70% of those have some kind of element of community service or volunteer work with it. We're just really big advocates that these are great opportunities for our students to be participating on, but we also want to be good global citizens, and we want to give back, and we want to be able to do something really positive for the communities that we're in. So we're really about sustainable development, working with those communities and sort of developing projects like what is it that your community wants or needs. And that's why you see a lot of different community service projects at Rustic Pathways. It's why we don't just do animal conservation projects, or we're not just doing work with education access or access to clean water, but it's really a mixture of what is best served for the communities that we're traveling in. I want to talk a little bit about Unwrapped Rustic, which is our holiday promotion happening right now. Um, Really, again, like I said, we're just really big proponents at Rustic Pathways that beyond just gifts that you might think about for a holiday, as great as it is to, have a new iPhone or, a cool new, pair of headphones or whatever it is, really experiences are what make an impact for students. And thinking about that as something really positive to give your student is really, a great thing to think about at this time of the year. So with the Unwrapped Rustic holiday promotion, we want to give you something a little bit to wrap up if you're giving something like an experience or a trip to a student. So if you sign up for a trip before December 24th, you'll get a free hoodie that we'll send you out in the mail that you can wrap up and give as a holiday gift. But also a really cool thing about this promotion is if you sign up before the 24th, then for any summer program, you have until March 1st to either change your date, change your program, or cancel for a full refund. A lot of people like to give these as surprises, but we also really want the students involved and engaged in the decision of where they're going to go and what they're going to do. Again, I'll talk about it more in the presentation, but it's really about developing what it is that you're passionate and excited about. So if you sign up for, say, a program in Fiji, give it to them as a gift, and then they say, oh my gosh, but I've been so excited to learn about a women's initiative in Peru. That's why we have that sort of flexible change or cancellation policy until March. So you can really have that in-depth conversation with that student to have some more time to figure out what they're most excited and passionate about. Next thing I'm going to talk about is just maximizing your summer. So most of the programs at Rustic Pathways are 1 to 2 weeks in length. We have a couple programs that are also 3 weeks, but it's really important for you just to think about how long do I want to be gone, or how long do I want this experience to go? All of our programs at Rustic are really sort of a la carte style. And what that means is logistically, every program begins and ends on the same day. So you can easily connect a 1 week and a 2 week program together to stay for as long or as short as you want. So if all you have is 1 week during the summer to participate in a program, awesome. We are happy to have you for 1 week. If you want to spend 6, 7, 8 weeks in the summer, great. It's also easy to sort of mix and match programs and interests and sort of have that length of time while you're there. As I said, I've been a trip leader for many, many years at Rustic Pathways. And a lot of times we'll see new students who are maybe a little bit nervous, so they go maybe just 1, maybe 2 weeks on program. But I've also seen just from being on the ground with students that sort of once you get there and once you get into the swing of things, you really just want to be spending as much of time as possible in that country, sort of exploring, that community or that region or that culture. I know a lot of students sort of get nervous to be there just for 1 week, but I just often, so many times, see a student that's just there for 1 week, really wishing that they had spent more time on the ground. Usually it just takes, 1 to 2 days to sort of get your bearings, get over jet lag a little bit. That's when you sort of get a little bit more comfortable with your group mates. And after you spend 1 or 2 days sort of getting accommodated to things on the ground, you're almost halfway through your trip if you're only there for 1 week. So I'm just a really big advocate for thinking about how long of an experience you want, and then sort of figuring out what programs are going to be best to sort of mix and match to fill in that time that you think will be well spent on the ground. Next thing I'm going to talk about is just creating that perfect experience. So like I said, all of our programs are a little bit a la carte, and it's really about thinking what are your expectations or goals on a program and finding programs that fulfill those goals. So some students come in and they say, you know what, I do want to do a little bit of community service, but I also want a bit of adventure. So maybe your experience includes something that's maybe community service for a week and then 2 weeks of an adventure program. Or maybe you're thinking about, you know what, this is my first time traveling by myself, so I want to have a little bit more comfortable accommodation. I want something maybe with, running water or air conditioning, and so maybe I want to do a base house program, but I also want to push myself a little bit. So maybe I'll do 2 weeks of a little bit more of a comfortable program, and I'll do 1 week where maybe I'm in a village with no running water or no electricity, or I'm doing 1 week of a program that has a homestay experience. So something that you're maybe a little bit nervous about, but you're happy to do for 1 week of maybe a 3-week experience to sort of push those limits and push those boundaries. So really thinking about, what is it that you want out of this experience? And then figuring out what programs are able to accommodate that experience are really important when, creating that itinerary for yourself. Next thing I want to talk about is just how it works. A lot of people, when they sort of get the catalog or read through the website, don't really understand how easy it is to connect programs. But like I said, it's literally how we design all of our programs. So people are able to do things back to back to back throughout the summer. Um, I'm actually going to go out of here and I will pop up just our website for y'all to see for a second. So right now, I've already pulled this up. This is our Intro to Community Service page in Fiji. So when you're on our website, if you click on any program, you'll come to a page like this, which will just have more details like the itinerary, the cost of the program, how long the program is, how many community service hours you'll get on the trip, and then also the departure dates. As you'll see with the departure dates, everything is listed as departure and arrival dates on our group flights from the United States. So if you're looking at a June 4th to June 12th departure date, it means that you'll be flying from the United States on June 4th, in this case from Los Angeles to Fiji, and you'll be arriving back into Los Angeles on June 12th. But what that means in terms of connecting programs, obviously there's a travel time between Los Angeles and Fiji, as well as crossing the international date line. But on the ground in Fiji, everything begins and ends on a Thursday. So this June 4th is a Tuesday in the United States. June 12th is going to be a Friday when it lands back in. But June 11th is really the transfer day on the ground in Fiji, where one program ends and the next program begins. So you don't really have to worry about flight times or crossing the international date line or anything like that. All you really need to know is everything begins and ends on the same day in the same city in every country that we travel. The one thing to keep in mind is if you are traveling from outside of the United States, so if you are living in France or if you're living in Brazil and joining us on a program, you aren't going to be taking our group flights from the United States. You'll have a personal travel advisor in our office who will help you with those flight times and when you should arrive and depart on the ground in Fiji. But logistically, the same thing will happen for you as well. Every program begins and ends on the same day in country, so you can still easily do everything back to back. So as you're sort of looking through the catalog or on the website, you'll start to see these departure dates. And like I said, this is Fiji. I've also pulled up another program, Escape to Fiji, on our website. And you'll start to see as well on our website, we all have live availability, and it'll show you if a program is available, if it's sold out, or if there's 5 or fewer spots on the program. It'll start to individually list how many spots are left on that individual trip. So we can see right here, Escape to Fiji is actually sold out on June 25th. So if you wanted to do a connection of Intro to Community Service and Escape to Fiji, I always think the easiest way to do it is sort of start with this one, just because it's a more limited availability for you. There's only 2 departure dates. So we can say, okay, maybe I want to do the July 2nd to July 10th departure date. So I look at this Intro to Community Service page, and I would either do then the June 25th to July 3rd departure date, or I would do the program after. So I just said that one ends on July 10th. So I could also do a July 9th, July 17th departure date for Intro to Community Service. Like I said, it's going to look like there's an overlap between programs, but that's because it's accommodating for travel time. You do not need to worry about any overlap. You don't miss a day of either program, and they'll all connect seamlessly together. It does depend on what country you're going to, how long of an overlap is, and it's purely just because of flight times and if you're crossing that international date line or not. So a place like Thailand is going to have like a 2-day overlap, where a place like Fiji or Costa Rica or the Dominican Republic is only going to have a 1-day overlap. The thing to keep in mind is really you're going to look for that overlap. You're not missing anything of either trip, but it's really what you're going to do a back-to-back program. A lot of people wonder, like, well, what happens in that transfer time as well? Like I said, every country is a little bit different. So there might be, 4 or 5 hours before the next group flies in which case we'll maybe take the students out for a movie. Maybe we're just, having lunch at the base house. It really depends what countries you're looking at connecting. But the other thing to keep in mind, your student is still not going to be by themselves anytime. They're going to be with our staff members the entire duration, including this connection time, as well as any other students they're doing connection. We'll just be one group while we sort of wait for other people to come in. So there won't be any time that they're by themselves or not doing anything. They're still going to be engaging and participating in programs or activities, depending on how long that transfer time is, while the new group comes in. But I think even in like the longest transfer time, it's maybe 5 or 6 hours before the new group comes in. So really not a big gap of time while their one group ends and the next group is arriving in. I'll go back to the presentation here. And I just want to go through a couple of examples and things to think about while you're connecting programs. So one thing that I'm a really big advocate of is connecting service and adventure. I think it's a really great way to sort of have a couple different experiences while you're in country. Like I said, service is a huge component of our programs at Rustic Pathways, and I'm such a big advocate of trying to incorporate some kind of community service element into your experience traveling with us, because I think it's often some of the most impactful experiences because you're working directly with the community, you're engaging with the community and culture in a way that they're so excited to have you in their community. So I just think it's a really authentic way to be there. And like I said, we're just really big advocates of sustainable development in these regions. So the communities are really excited to welcome our students because we built a school, for their kids 15 years ago, or we got water access to, 30 families that didn't have access to water before. So I think it's just such a cool, welcoming way to join our programs. And I would always advocate for thinking of a way to have some kind of community service element as part of this experience. Here are a couple examples that you can look at. I just think are really great examples to go through. So like our Enroll village service in Tanzania, awesome family that we stay with, some really great service work that we do. It is in more of a small rural community and village, just a really great way to sort of get an experience in small town Tanzanian life. And then awesome to connect it to something like Serengeti to Zanzibar. So that would be something like our traditional African safari. If you want to go see elephants, lions, giraffe, you want to go down to Zanzibar, spend some time on the beach. It's a really cool example of something where you can do some really cool, meaningful service work, and then just have a fun experience doing something that's also really quintessential Tanzania, like going to Zanzibar or going to see an African safari. Peru, another couple great examples. So Sacred Valley Service, again, it's going to be another sort of village type experience where we do an infrastructure project. You'll get to see Machu Picchu at the end of the program. And then Andes to Amazon is sort of an adventure opportunity, getting to sort of engage in the Amazon jungle or hike through the Andes Mountains. So again, just another really good example of connecting service and adventure. Fiji, again, another great example. Sun Santa International Service is a base house program that we run, and it's a mixture of service projects. So you're doing a little bit of working with kids on an education project, you're doing a little bit of an infrastructure development project, we're doing a little bit with a nutrition project. So it's a great way to sort of get a lot of different service experiences. And then again, Escape is just a cool 1-week adventure trip where you're going to the islands of Fiji. You spend a lot of time on the beaches. You get some adventure activities like zip lining. So again, just a really cool pairing between a couple different experiences. Another way you can think about it is, rather than am I pairing service and adventure, do I maybe want to pair a couple different types of community service? So if we look at something like Costa Rica, our turtle conservation project is all about environmental conservation, working with turtles, learning about global warming and how that affects this individual wildlife and habitat. And that's the complete focus of the program. Whereas Summer Camp Leadership is something all about working with kids and youth in Costa Rica and developing leadership skills, critical thinking skills, and independent thinking skills. So it's pairing sort of an education with youth with a conservation trip. Similarly, in the Dominican Republic, Life in the Bates is all about working with migrant workers and migrant worker rights. So it's a really in-depth program. It's one of our critical issues program, which just means it's more academic based. It's a little bit more thought-provoking. We spend a lot of time in group discussions. There's some pre-departure readings. And it's an issue that sort of is a global issue that we're looking at through like one individual community. And again, you can partner that up with something like Island Living and Eco Service that is all just about environmental service. It's a little bit of a lighter service program. So we're doing some replanting effort, but we're also just spending some time on the beach. So it's a great way to think about partnering maybe a more in-depth, thought-provoking, critical issues type service program with something that's maybe a little bit lighter, still talking about service, but also incorporating some of that adventure in the program as well. And then the last example I like to give is Cambodia. Our Access to Education program in Cambodia and Floating Village Service Expedition, both are really talking about education in Cambodia, but we're looking at it from two very different perspectives. So Access to Education is really about, how are we giving students an education? Is this vocational skills? Is it boosting English, science, math? Like, what are we doing in the classroom to really boost those students' skills, as well as just make sure that they have the capability and ability to get in that classroom itself. Where Floating Village Service is also talking about education in Cambodia, but we're really working on an infrastructure project to provide a school to a community where their school was previously sinking just because of flooding or sort of the villages that they work in, and how in different types of the year, water will increase or decrease, and that really has put a strain on the building that they have. So again, both programs talking about education, but looking at it from in the classroom and then sort of out of the classroom experience. So it might be another way for you to think about how you want to sort of combine two different things together. Another thing to think about is maybe you just want to go to two different regions of the world, or two different regions of the country while you're traveling there. So I won't go through the individual programs, but this just sort of gives you an example of another thing to think about when you're connecting programs. So these two programs in Thailand, one takes place in Northwest Thailand, one takes place sort of in the beaches or the coastline of Southern Thailand. In Australia, something that's more coastal versus more in the outback. And in China, maybe you're doing something a little bit more in the like urban areas of China, and maybe you're doing something in the more rural areas of China. It's just another great way to think about your program and experience, because regionally, these programs take place in such different areas, and you might be able to get a much better view of that country or community or culture just to realize, oh man, like Northern Thailand is nothing like Southern Thailand, or like rural China is nothing like urban China. So it's a really great way, again, to think about two very different experiences within one overall summer. Another really cool thing that we do is you can travel regionally at Rustic Pathways. So if you want to go to two different countries, awesome. Something that we have logistically worked out within the regions and something that we're really happy to do. This happens really regionally in Rustic Pathways though. So we have the Southeast Asia region, which would be Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam, Laos, Mongolia, or China. Those are really areas where we can connect programs together. And again, these are just some examples showing you. We have the South Pacific region. So that would really be Australia, Fiji, New Zealand. That sort of region all connects. And then Latin America. So that would be Costa Rica, Dominican, and Peru sometimes fits in there with the flight logistics as well. If you are connecting two countries together, you will pay for the additional flight between the two countries. And you'll find that on our flight page on Rustic Pathways, how much that cost is to add a connecting country to it. And the one thing to keep in mind if you are connecting countries together is that these will be flights that are not escorted by Rustic Pathways staff members. So our international flights from the United States to the countries always escorted. But if you're doing something that's, say, Fiji to Australia, that will not have a Rustic Pathways staff member on it. We're still going to bookend you at the airport. So our staff members are going to drop you off. We're going to give you an instruction sheet of exactly how to navigate the airport once you land in Brisbane, contact numbers in case you need it, and exact step-by-step instructions. And of course, then when you land in Brisbane, we'll have staff members at the arrivals hall to pick you up and get you with the rest of the group. But it is one thing I'd just like to highlight for families to consider, just because some students are really confident and comfortable and will be totally fine doing that connection. And some students or parents just don't feel comfortable by having a non-escorted flight, even with an instruction set. So that's the one thing to sort of consider if you do want to connect countries together. The last thing I'm going to go through is how to enroll. So on our website, actually, I'll show you first. On our website, there's two ways to do it. If you know which date you want to do, you can just click Enroll. That just, I think, is the best way to do it because it shows you that there's still availability, just so you don't get to the enrollment page and you go, oh, shoot, I didn't realize that the June 12th departure date was sold out. But from any page on our website as well, you can also just go to the upper right-hand corner of any page and just click this Enroll button. And that will take you to our application page, which you'll fill out. It's basic demographic information. It takes maybe 15 minutes to fill out. I've already filled in the demographic information, so I'm going to forward ahead here, but this is the actual application itself. When you come to the application, this is, I think, the 4th page after the parent name, student name, your address, that kind of stuff. It'll show you this section, which is choose your programs. And what you do is you're going to select what country you're going to. So let's say we're going to Fiji. It's cold, so maybe a nice mental image just to be on the beach in Fiji. And then after you select Fiji, it'll change the select your program drop-down menu to all of the programs that we run in Fiji. So we'll go to our initial example and we'll say, great, I want to do, so let's do Escape to Fiji. So Escape to Fiji, again, we know that that June 25th departure date is sold out, so we can't add it, but I know I want to do this July 2nd departure date. So I'll click Add, and that will now show up. You'll see it no longer is available for us to add because we've already added it, and it will pop up right here in our itinerary. Now, if we want to add another program, we'll just go back up to the same section here. We're still in Fiji, and I know I want to do Intro to Community Service. So like I said, we're going to look for the overlap. So since we selected the July 2nd departure date, we're going to look for the departure date with the July 3rd return. We'll click Add, and that will have now added that to our itinerary. And you can scroll down here, and now you can see that we have the 2 programs on our itinerary page. So now when you submit this application, you'll have both of those programs in the application, so you don't have to fill out the same application twice for 2 different programs. Super easy to do. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to give us a call while you're filling out the application, and we're happy to walk you through that process as well while you're filling it out. And I think that's it. So now, happy to take any questions that Jessie was not able to get to. It looks like she answered all of the questions in the background. So I'll have a couple moments just to see if y'all have any other questions that pop up. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us on the webinar. We're really excited to have y'all travel with us during the summer. If you have any other questions about how to connect a program or figuring out what the program is best for you, definitely feel free, give us a call, send us an email, use the online chat feature on our website. Myself or Jessie are always happy to walk you through some options. And like I said, we've done a ton of programs. So we're always really happy to help find really good fits for people and what fits the students' interests and passions. So like I said, thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to seeing you in the summer, and have a happy holidays. Bye, everyone.